Look how they're all the same. Now they're still there in somewhat, but not like that. That has all the pieces in place. What's there now is just like maybe a third, just like these doors are just amazing. Now, these people, I think what they did is they did a depiction of the city that they're from above their heads. So, like, certain people are from the same city. You know, these, like, apostles or whatever that came bringing the gospel, you know. So they show, like, whatever city they're from, like Antioch or whatever. And then the pieces that fell off the building, they keep them there nearby. It's not like they could just make those pieces. They didn't know how to do that exactly. It's all found. Look at that doorway. I mean, yes, these are children, but the doorway is so much larger than you'd think it would need to be. And then here are these dolomites, or whatever they call it. They knew that it was something significant. So they took pictures of it, but I wish they would have written down their conjecture about what it was. I mean, it's pretty obviously a collapsed building, but it's hard to tell what the purpose of the building was. See that doorway is added as an afterthought. There's probably a door buried underground much larger. This is at, I think we're in Paris now. Notre Dame, maybe. The writing seems like it was put in later. Looks like it's written in chalk or something. I don't know what those hole marks are, you know, that are in the walls. If that's just on the photograph or if that was in the structure. But it's weird how they brick up certain things, you know. They fill it in. The doorways are so much bigger than, everything's just bigger than the people are. These really old structures. It's hard to tell what that is. This I thought was funny. It's like he's using an Apple Pen and there's a face cam there and he's using his like iPad. I don't know what device that was. Pretty cool though. Who knows what technology? I mean, for crying out loud, he's sitting on a cloud.
How does it work?
Armaments, Chapter 2, verses 9 to 21.
Raise the hand grenade up on high.
Using his iPad. A lot of these buildings aren't there anymore. Oh, Joan of Arc's home. I think that's still there. No, that was interesting. What's on top of this is like piles of mud depicted. They're taking shelter from like falling chunks of mud. Notre Dame. You can see how it looks like a chair there. It's not, but you could see how if that was like a giant chair, how there'd be a giant sitting in one of these buildings, and then all the little people would go there and defer to the giant who's in charge of the town. The men of old, the men of renown. Giants. That's how I think the cathedrals got started. They were just the residence, offices of the giants who ruled over the people, the regular sized people, if there were, living side by side. Not huge giants, but just like, 20 to 30 footers. They'd definitely be in charge of the town. So there's a theory that some of this atmospheric energy things, they do some kind of mind control type thing to make you feel good. So when you go into the building, you're more agreeable and feel good. And so then they can do their dealings a little bit easier. Be smart if they could figure that out. Yeah, it's like a tree stump. A lot of these star forts and castles are built on what could have been old, huge tree stumps from before the flood. Because there definitely were huge trees. I've had dreams about it, the enormous trees with these trunks that are 50, 60, 70 feet in diameter, maybe a lot more, reaching up into the clouds. Yeah, if you've ever tried to get work done with a contractor, can you imagine telling a contractor you want stone carved and give them these specifications and have that put into your building that you're remodeling or constructing? They'd laugh you out of the place. You can't do that. Not nowadays. They'd tell you to go pound sand. Ask you what planet you're from. Or that you want your ceilings to be that high, and the doorways and frescoes and all these types of things. You want bricks that are angled to make a perfect cone shape, and you're going to have these circular rooftops, and you want these ornate gilded copper, gold, whatever, metal, weather vane things that collect electricity They wouldn't know what you're even asking for. Yeah, and you're going to build a house for, $500 million out in the countryside. It's just something that they wouldn't do. Now I noticed that when these things receive the stamp of approval, they're oftentimes like cropped or chopped. It's like if it reveals something, it gets flagged, and then they crop it, chop it, and then they give it the stamp of approval afterwards. So there's this phenomenon. It's like when something is like partially stone, partially wood. I've been seeing that. They like to tell you that it's like a stucco, like a plaster, over top of wood, and it just kind of blended together. But I think it's that actually just the wood that's kind of partially petrified and partially mineralized, because this is so old. Yeah, you can tell when they've raised the floors that there's no base, like there's no molding, like shoe molding or base along the bottom. It's just like a right angle, because they just poured like concrete and raised the floor, shortened the doorways. Have you seen anybody build anything like that lately? I mean, look at that, all that carved stone. No way. And don't get me wrong, there are beautiful homes being built. Well, not hardly anything's being built because of depopulation. But like 20 years ago, I can remember when a lot of people were building homes. But now that the population is on the shrinking, nobody seems to build squat anymore. They tear down homes, but they can't tear them down fast enough for the decreasing population. And a lot of these things, these beautiful ones, they're empty anyway. They've always been empty, as far as I've known, in my lifetime at least. I've been over there and looked at these, and for the most part, if they're not a museum or something, a lot of times they are empty. Part of it is they're moldy and everything because they didn't know how to work the heating and cooling. But yeah, there's like things covered up and things that are blank or missing. It's very odd, it seems like a feature that is missing. They just try to take out whatever is there that told you about the history. This must be in some museum. I don't know why it doesn't have a background. But they have it featured. It's not like they could just make that stuff, because even back then they knew it was something special that needed to be preserved, because they didn't make that. Supposedly they had just made it, but yet they photo documented it because it was something special that they weren't sure how to exactly do. I think these were put in the Louvre. So then this building has like a fake background. It's weird. But this building, I took a longer look at it. Yeah, it's got like chopped areas where they've digitally removed features. and gave it the vanilla sky, but this building's very different. These angular features and the prevalence of the round porthole things, but they're filled in. It's really weird. And just the number of features and the towers on it. It's really unusual. It's unlike any other building. And it's not obvious, like, what is the purpose of the building? You know, you look at it, I don't know, it looks like a city on top of a church type thing, on top of like a big residence, or it's hard to say. I don't even know if it's still there. It's very unusual. Very unusual. It's got that stamp of approval because it's been retouched and edited. They've all got that. They've all got these fancy weather vanes. They're like umbrellas, you know, just the wires. They just don't build homes like that anymore. It'd be really hard to roof that one. Look at that, dug right out of the mud. Stamp of approval. Vanilla sky. Frescoes are amazing. Just looking at this, can you tell what's stone and what's wood? It's hard to tell. I think one of the reasons it's hard to tell is that a lot of the carved stone was actually carved wood. And the wood turned to stone. More big rocks. Definite features in it that tell you it used to be something. It's not just a rock. Millions of years old. Yeah, some of these features, there's no other way to explain it. It used to be part of a structure or a machine or something. A lot of times you can tell if there was metal inside. The metal shows through even to this day. Oftentimes, if you picture them as being like the cone heads, you know, they actually could be cone heads. It's amazing. Like, I started looking at things that way, and there's so many of these old pictures. They have top hats, fezzes, big, you know, like turbans or the big hairdo things all wrapped up. It's very possible that a lot of them were cone heads, just kind of walking around. Magnificent. Stamp of approval, Vanilla Sky. It's hard to tell. Is it a photograph or a drawing? It's kind of in between. It's really old. I think it's an older style of photograph that was somehow like printed in a way that a drawing is done. The details are amazing. So many of these things that they found, they're just not around anymore. But if you look at where they were and how they were found, it just raises a lot of questions. I don't know how anybody can question the biblical deluge. It's so obvious that it happened. Who knows where all this stuff is nowadays? The stories they tell about how these things were all carved, advanced. I don't go by the drawings that much, but there is some really good stuff in the drawings if you can figure out what to trust and what to... Because some of the drawings are going to be like basically photographs of what things were like, and the other ones are going to be total bullcrap. These old ones that are showing like these older technologies are very interesting. There's a lot to be learned from these. And then there's a lot of wickedness in it too. It's fraught with peril and pitfalls. Alright, so once again, sorry that I sound this way. I probably sound worse than how I feel. I mean, I don't feel as bad as I sound. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Hopefully I'll sound a lot better.
and hills, and at some point in the past. So that's about it. I think I'll leave it there, and until next time, have a nice day. And hills, and at some point in the past. So that's about it. I think I'll leave it there, and until next time.